What's up guys, welcome back to Aquatic Elements. Today's video is slightly different and I'm going to be talking to you about one of my clients' aquariums, which is the Red Sea G-Series Peninsula. Now in today's video I'm going to be talking to you about how you can keep a marine tank and how it's really not actually that difficult to do, and I'm going to be giving you some of my top tips in how to create and how to keep a thriving reef aquarium. So let's get into it. Now for those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Chris and I run Aquatic Elements. We are an aquarium maintenance and installation company, and we also do ponds as well, based in Surrey, which is just to the south of London for our international viewers. Now we actually set this aquarium up just over a year ago. I think it's coming to around a year and a half now. And this is one of the Red Sea G-Series, the Peninsula Aquarium, and it holds around 500 litres. Now I'm going to be taking you on a tour of this aquarium in today's video, and we're also going to be speaking about how easy it can actually be to set up and have a thriving, beautiful reef aquarium just like this one behind me. Now, if you're watching this video, you may already have a reef tank at home, or you may be considering having one in your home and actually starting your first reef aquarium. So I'm going to get into some of the important information and some of the details which I think contribute to a thriving reef aquarium, and there are quite a few little top tips that I'm going to give throughout this video and how you can actually have a really easy to look after reef aquarium. Now this tank here I maintain once every single week, so it takes around an hour to an hour and a half every single week, and that is all the maintenance that is done on this system. Now my first tip is to go with a reasonably large tank. This tank is approximately 4 feet long, 2 feet wide and 2 feet tall, and it gives a volume of around 420 litres in the display, and it's also got around 80 litres in the sump, coming to a total system volume of 500 litres. One thing I would say is if you're setting up your first marine tank, definitely go for something over the 250 litre mark. Anything from 300 to 500 litres, you're going to have far less swings in parameters, far less swings in temperature, and anything that starts to go downhill is going to take a lot longer to get there, and it gives you a bit of time to rectify it before it goes all wrong. Now reef tanks are definitely a slow work in progress. Don't get too caught up on the day-to-day and the week-to-week swings and changes in the aquarium. These tanks take a lot of time to mature, and I would say, as this tank is around a year and a half old, we're only finally just getting into a nice mature stage where the corals are really starting to grow, the fish are growing, and you can see they're all waiting for me to feed them, and I'll give them a little bit of food later on in this video. Now with this tank, the client wanted the aquarium to be settled in a little bit quicker. They wanted to add fish reasonably quickly and also the corals as well, which is why we opted for a live rock. Now I'd say there's many positives and negatives to going with a dry rock or a live rock, and in this case we went for around 30 to 32 kilos of live reef rock, which really helps to get the system mature. You've got your beneficial bacteria, you often end up with lots of different critters like copepods, amphipods, even bristleworms, which helps get the tank maturing quickly, and it allows all of the beneficial reef invertebrates and reef critters to get into the tank, get established, and make sure that the water is nice and safe for the corals and fish that you wish to add. Now with any reef tank, I would always opt for a sump, whether you have a built-in chamber at the back of the tank or you have a sump underneath in the cabinet. Now I've actually just done all of the general maintenance which I would do on this tank, so you may find it to be a little bit cloudy or a few of the corals are closed, and that is just consisting of topping up the RO reservoir, doing a water change where I like to use natural seawater. I feel like this gives the tank a little bit of a boost, and the corals definitely appreciate it. I know there's going to be a lot of arguments for and against that, but I love to use the natural seawater. I'm also testing the water, testing the calcium, the magnesium, the KH, the nitrate and the phosphate, which I would say are the 5 main tests you want to keep an eye on. With all of my clients' aquariums, I like to aim for a KH between 7 and 8, calcium anywhere from 410 to 430, and magnesium generally in the upper region of 1,380 to 1,500. I'm always trying to keep nitrates low, anything in the range of 2 to 10, dependent on the aquarium and whether we've got soft corals or whether we've got hard corals, and also keeping the phosphate down, any slight blue tinge on the Saltwater test kit, and I like to change the RoaPhos in the reactor to keep that down and prevent any big levels of algae outbreaks occurring in the display tank. Now, I've been keeping reef aquariums for over 10 years now, and I've also looked after many different clients' aquariums, all the way from SPS dominated tanks to fish only with live rock, and something like this, which you can see is full of soft corals. Now, I've had many tanks myself, and if I were to ever keep reef aquariums again, this would be the style of tank I would opt for. Only keeping the soft corals. They're very, very tolerant. You get a nice bit of movement with them as well, and they grow reasonably quickly. They help to consume the nutrients with their rapid growth, and they're also very forgiving. If you have a slight swing or change in parameters, you're not gonna have any stripping like you would on maybe an SPS colony. You're not gonna be losing any heads like you potentially would on a LPS, like a hammer or a torch coral. And they generally cover the rocks and provide a really, really nice environment. Also, opting for fairly simple fish and fairly hardy fish is really important to both me and my clients, and it also stops having many deaths in the aquarium, which often my customers really, really don't like to see. And then I've obviously got to come out, sort out the dead fish and explain potentially what could have happened. But as with all marine fish, 95% are from the wild, and it can be quite difficult to explain deaths. So going for something like clownfish, anthias, royal gramma, damselfish, even some of the pygmy angels can be very rewarding for the client, and they can also be very easy to keep, often taking prepared foods. I've simply got a couple of the Eheim auto feeders above the tanks. So in this one, we've got some flake food, and in the other, I've got a range of different pellets. Now, these help to keep the fish well fed, especially if the client is away. And then I also feed them some liquid food, which the client puts in every 2 to 3 days, which means they have an absolute minimal input into the aquarium, and they can simply just enjoy it. Now, something else I find really important is feeding. Now, I've just mentioned those auto feeders, and we also give the fish some liquid food. I've got some Calanus in here, and we also give them some gold pods or gold copper pods, which are from Nios. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of the liquid food to the tank, and we can watch those fish feed on camera. Now, one thing I would say is very, very important is to not overfeed your fish. And this tank has had absolutely minimal problems, and we've had no issues with the dirty stage or any brown algae forming or any hair algae. And that is massively down to the feeding. We have the auto feeders, which help to keep feeding consistent. We also have the refugium section, which I would say is a must in any saltwater tank. Not only does the refugium remove nutrients, it also provides a safe haven for any live food like copepods and amphipods, which will eventually reach the display and be free food for your fish. It also helps to stabilize any potential pH swings, and it keeps the oxygen levels high when that is photosynthesizing. Now, I like to use a different range of macroalgae. I find some tanks work with specific algae and they really don't work with others. One of my favorite is Coleoptera, whether being the Coleoptera taxifolia or the Coleoptera racemosa. I find Cheeto works quite well, but I don't have as much success with it, and I find the Coleoptera really takes off and grows quite quickly. Now, overfeeding can definitely be very damaging to your reef. I find so many clients absolutely love to feed their fish, and they love to overfeed them. And they think they're doing something helpful. They think they're helping the fish be big and strong, but it is just causing more problems than necessary. Now, overfeeding your tank is going to lead to big algae outbreaks. It's going to lead to a fall in the water quality, and the fish live essentially in their own waste, which is cleaned and removed by the filters. However, overfeeding them can be very detrimental. I like to give reef tanks a feed once or twice per day, with a small level of food coming from the auto feeders, being that dry food, and then the owner of the aquarium feeding them some liquid food or potentially some frozen food every 2 or 3 days. Keeping an eye on the fish, making sure that their body shapes are kept nice and slim, but they still have a nice belly on them, making sure that the fish aren't fighting, there is no aggression. I find often with aggression and aggression between fish, it's because they're potentially being underfed or they're not quite in the right environment, and giving them a nice environment and the correct level of food stops that from happening, and you also get the thriving reef and the corals and the invertebrates as well. Now, the filtration is arguably the most important part of your aquarium, and it is also the heart of the system. So having the correct filtration for a marine tank is very, very important. In this aquarium, the water runs down through the overflows. We've got the main drain and the emergency drain. It comes into the mechanical section, which hosts our 2 filter socks and a bit of filter floss, through the refugium, and then it ends up into the slightly cleaner side of the sump, where we've got our skimmer, we've got our reactor, which has roaphos and carbon in. It also has our heater in there. I like to run the titanium heaters with the D&D temp controllers, which keeps the temperature nice and stable, and I would say is a must for any marine tank. Really, really good units, and they do a great job at alerting you if the temperatures ever fall out of line. And then finally up into the last chamber, where we've got our TMC variable speed return pump, which provides the flow to the system. Now, a very important section of the sump, as I've mentioned, is the refugium. We've got some Coleoptera growing in this sump. We do have a very, very low nutrient load in this aquarium, so it's currently not doing too well, but I do often find I'm occasionally replacing it, providing a bit of new algae, which seems to take off, spread, and then we don't have any issues for the next 6 months. Suddenly it might start to die off. I remove it from the system before we have any issues, and I maybe replenish it with something slightly different. But enough on the algae. An overpowered skimmer is very useful in not only adding oxygen, but also degassing CO2, helping to keep your pH stable, and obviously removing any liquid waste in the aquarium. And then finally, a big top up. This is really, really useful. This holds, I think it's 80 to 100 litres of RO water. So if the client's ever away, we've got the Eheim auto feeders, which feed the fish. We've got our 80 to 100 litres of RO water, which tops up the aquarium, which means this system can run without fail for a couple of weeks, which is really, really useful, and it gives you peace of mind as well. Now, one last thing onto the water. I find a very easy method to keep your nutrients and the correct elements stable is using All for Reef. Now, this is from Tropic Marin, and it is an all-in-one powder which helps to keep your KH, magnesium, calcium stable, as well as all of your trace elements. Now, on many clients' aquariums, I have a single dose head, which automatically doses a set portion to the tank every single day. But on this tank, for the last 1.5 years, I've actually been just manually dosing it. I do all the tests every single week, and I manually add the powder, which removes one piece of equipment, keeps things a little bit simpler. And for this tank, it's been working. Now, I know everyone else will have their own ways, but keeping a simple dosing schedule and sticking with the same dosing product really, really helps this tank to thrive. And just before we finish the video, I haven't spoken about the lighting on this tank, which a few of you might be thinking, haven't seen those lights before. And I've actually got 2 of the Fluval C lights on this tank. Now, I wouldn't usually recommend a low-powered LED to run your reef tank, but I really want to show you that these lights can do a great job at growing soft corals. They're nice and simple to use, very easy to run, and you're not worrying too much about Wi-Fi connections and the timings that the lights come on and off. They're so easy to program on the phone. and they give a really, really nice effect to the tank. You've probably seen a bit of B-roll going through this video, and I've turned all the exterior lights on, which are currently on, so you can really see the corals and the colors of the fish as well. And these lights do a great job on a tank just like this. They're also nice and slimline, so they're not in the viewer's eyesight, and it helps to keep this tank looking neat and tidy. And that brings us to the end of the video. It's super easy to keep a marine tank, and if you put in the time and effort and dedication into the foundation of your tank with the right equipment, the correct size, you're going to end up with a thriving reef tank. Now, a few takeaways from this video. One thing that's very important is dosing a nice supplement to your tank to help your corals thrive, using a nice foundation rock like the Reef Live Rock that we've got, maybe sticking towards some easy corals like the soft corals, where you can still get a nice level of color, but you can also get some different shapes and a forgiving coral as well. You're not going to end up with any issues. Maybe using a natural seawater and just really keeping things simple. Glass cleaning, water changes, cleaning out your skimmer, cleaning out your mechanical filtration, and not overfeeding the tank are all contributors to a successful tank. But that brings us to the end of the video today. I'll make sure to make lots of new videos just like this one today, and please let me know if you found it helpful, and if you've got any questions you can leave those down in the comment section. But thank you all for watching. Remember to keep those water changes up, and happy fish keeping.